Hello and welcome to my Minecraft build. So, you potentially have a Minecraft house that looks something like this, which is, to put it nicely, kinda boring. It is, I don't know, 6 by, 12 and with a peak roof, and in this video, I'm going to teach you how to do that differently. I'm going to give you a few tips and just give you some very basic ideas of how to improve your build. So let's just kick it into time lapse. First, let's tear down the old house. That's all there is to it. After that, remove all that's left and let's just build up a foundation using, in this case, some wood, oak planks, some stone brick, and as you see, I'm adding depth already. We're having the stone pillars outside of the walls, and we're just building everything up to a height of 4 blocks, texturing with some polished, and decide where it makes sense. Now, it's time to add something that grounds it a bit more, so we're adding in some tuff around the bottom, and we're actually texturing that as well with some mossy cobblestone, some cobblestone. The cobbled deep slate didn't look so good, so I chose not to use it. And now, here come the windows. Adding in some quick windows. They're temporary, they're not necessarily going to stay as they are, but they're giving me an idea of where I want windows. Now for texturing oak planks, I'm using stripped oak logs and some beehives. They have the same color palette. They give some depth, some color depth, some texturing. They're nice. Now, for contrast and for even more depth, I'm adding in details in spruce slabs, spruce stairs. Just, in this case, I went for a rounded look. You could go for square, you could go for fences everywhere. Just adds in more detail. Now, I do this everywhere. And I add some bracing to the pillars using the spruce trapdoors. Just for even more fun and detail, if you will. Now we get to the roof. For the roof, we're adding an overhang of 1 block. So we have 3 blocks of depth in total, and we're just making this staggered stair line, which is resembling the hips of the roof. And now we're adding some half slabs on top, making the ridge, and adding the stairs around the bottom for a fascia. Everything else is going to be whole blocks. It adds even more depth, I feel, and I just like it. In this case, I chose copper or oxidized copper, as it's going to add some contrast to the brownish, orangey, yellowy wood and the gray, just like teal orange color cocktails. So some teal, cyan, bluish color from the copper, and then even, which matches all the browns and oranges from the wood, and the gray just binds it together, ties it all together. Now, there are bare spots, so I just add some details in the form of a few more trapdoors, a few more stairs, and some fencing. And that's all there is to detailing. It's really easy. Now, for the roof texturing, I test my color palette and I figure out that weathered copper and some warped hyphae is good. It's the same color palette, it's not too contrasty, but it's still contrasty, and it's all nice. Now it's time to try and add a chimney, and I have several ideas, but I end up going for the brick one. It just added a bit more contrast, it fit in, adding a campfire, some trapdoors around it, and there you go. That's the chimney, some bracing at the bottom, and that should be a build done. And that's all there is to it. Now we should be done with a house. Looks like this now. We started at that point, now we're here. So there's a lot more texture, there's some depth to it. It's basically the same floor plan. It is slightly wider and it has these 2 extrusions on it, making it a bit more spacious inside. But it's still only 1 story. There's 1 floor, it's a ground floor, there's a peak roof. It's just more interesting. So in general tips to sort of round off the video, depth, depth, and more depth. So we have a layer of wall, then we have some details on top of that, and then we have an outhang or overhang, making this entire build 1, 2, 3 blocks deep. Every wall you look at seems to be 3 blocks deep, making it a lot more depthy, a lot more three-dimensional. I know this is three-dimensional, but it's not this three-dimensional now, is it? And texture. This is all just copper. We have some oxidized copper, we have some weathered copper, and we just have some stripped warped stems or hyphae, or whatever it's called. And it just adds a lot of detail. Here we have some stone bricks and we have some polished andesite. We could add in some mossy stone brick. And the base we have some cobblestone and some tough and some mossy cobblestone. We have some contrast with some oak and some spruce. We just have contrast, texture, and depth. And that's all there is to it. If you have to take one thing from this entire build to improve your build, just add an overhang. Let's just try, for the fun of it, to add a quick overhang to this build. So we're just improving one quality. We have added an overhang. In a minute we have, at least. Just go all the way around, adding this overhang. We're not even going to make it proper structurally. We're not going to support it or anything. We're just adding the overhang. And the last line. Whoops. And one block, and there we are. We just added the overhang, and it did make it a lot more three-dimensional. We also have some panes to add a bit of depth. But in this build, we also had the panes, and they add more depth. We have fences which are a half a block in, adding more visual depth. These lanterns are placed in the middle of something, adding depth. These go out like 20 centimeters. That's more depth. Depth, depth, and even more depth. And that's all there is to it. Then we have some movement. We have the lanterns that are static, where before we had torches that had a bit of movement when you're close by. Now we have some smoke coming out of a chimney instead. Small details. Well, next time we're going to tackle the interior, because now we have the outside of a base, but inside it's pretty dead. There is not much in here. We need a floor, we need some kind of storage, because everyone needs storage. So, see you in the next installment of how to improve your Minecraft house. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. Bye.